Let's get into my top 20. Okay guys, we are in the top 20. So just like with last video, these are my favorites over here. These are my favorites over here. So it's going to be really hard for me to get to some of these books. So I'm just going to put images up. No, I own the entire series if I'm talking about a series, or I own the physical copy of the book if I'm talking about the books. You'll probably see the sci-fi ones that I will be talking about over here, but I talk about these a little less than I talk about these, so I wanted to point you guys this way. All right, coming in at number 20 would be The Wounded Kingdom by R.J. Barker. R.J. Barker is a author I found last year and have read just about everything from. I have Gods of the Weirdwood on my TBR, and I have loved his writing so much. So much. It is eloquent without sounding pretentious, but it's also really dark, and I love really dark books. So I just love Girton Clubfoot. I love his journey through each book. I love that this is what I wanted Assassin's Apprentice to be. Yes, by Robin Hobb, and didn't get. So we have an assassin who's making his way up in the world, and he has a crotchety old trainer who I adore, love her. And he keeps getting himself involved in bigger schemes, bigger problems. Let me adjust my lighting because it's starting to drive me nuts. It's too bright. There we go. I had unplugged my lighting earlier and I forget it resets. So anyway, The Wounded Kingdom by R.J. Barker I think is absolutely fantastic. If you like assassin fantasy, this is definitely a series you should pick up. And I think that R.J. Barker is a much more eloquent writer than most of the authors I've read from that write thieving style books. That's the nicest way I can say that. I'm not saying that the rest of them are bad, because Thieves and Assassins are my absolute favorite. I just think R.J. Barker does it better. Next would be the book I have not stopped talking about all year, The Maleficent 7. If you guys come across me on Discord, I'm probably going to mention Cameron Johnston and the Maleficent 7. I love how this is Suicide Squad meets fantasy, and that's really all you need to know going into it. There's not much else to tell you other than we have a mother figure who's fighting to save her family, and she's recruited the worst of the worst to do so. Also, this has the best ending to a book I have ever read. Top tier, like, ending. Could not have asked for a better one. Fantastic. Then we have The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. If you've been around this channel for a while, you will know I absolutely love The Faithful and the Fallen. It did take me a couple of books to get into this, but Wrath and Ruin are two of the best books I've ever read, and I just didn't really like how slow it was to get moving in the first book, and then I had some issues with the tropes in the second book. However, I think I gave the first one 4 stars and the second one 3.5 stars, and then Ruin and Wrath were both 5 stars. So while I do have one in this series that comes below a 4-star, still, is it really, like, can we count that when the rest of the series is above that or right at that? So I love The Faithful and the Fallen. I am not the biggest fan of John Gwynne's descriptions. While I'm not a big fan of, like, over description, it was really hard to keep the characters straight in this whole series. And I am going to soon be moving on to the secondary series from The Faithful and the Fallen. But this has an epic cast. It's epic fantasy. It is one of the newer epic fantasies out there with the modern style writing that got a good run. There are 7 books in total when you think about The Faithful and the Fallen and its secondary series. So it's a pretty chunky series. I really loved it though. I loved it. Oh, and I actually bought a physical copy of this book recently because I had been putting it off and putting it off. Sister Song by Lucy Holland. So I love this book, guys. I love this book. I don't talk about it nearly enough. I have talked about it quite a lot. If anybody asks me for a recommendation for historical fantasy, I always say Sister Song by Lucy Holland. I'm so excited she has written another book. I need to get my hands on that one as well. But this is a beautiful story about sisters and how relationships can change over time, when people change, when circumstances change, and when outside influence started to affect what is going on inside the household. But it's a great fantasy story to go along with it. I don't really want to talk about the fantasy elements because I do feel like a lot of that leads into spoilery discussion. And so I don't really want to put that out there and spoil something for you guys because Sister Song is just absolutely beautiful. And if you liked Circe, I would recommend Sister Song because the writing is just as good, the characters are better, and then the way that religion and mythology intertwine in Sister Song just is so epic and so great. Next, we have a Dowy of Blood. Again, if you guys have been around for any amount of time, you know that my heart lies in Gothic horror. And while this is touted as a fantasy, because yes, we are dealing with Dracula and Dracula's brides, well, it's Gothic horror, and it is very much about trauma and about how one woman's plight turns into multiple people's plight over the course of time, and what love looks like, what trauma looks like, and how to heal from all of that, and what we tell ourselves when we're going through the trauma. So it's a very hard-hitting book. It is not for the faint of heart. And if any of that sounds like something you might want to read, I'd recommend it, but check trigger warnings before getting into it. Beautiful, beautiful book. And then we have Raven's Mark. Oh my gosh, I feel like I have sung the praises of Blackwing like for 10 years. I've been doing reviewing for 10 years, and it's one of the first fantasy series that I got an arc of, and I love it. And I would love so much if they would do a movie of this because I want to see the misery. This is one of the darker fantasies that I like. This is very grimdark, and it gets more grimdark as the series progresses. So even though the first book ends on kind of a hopeful note, kind of a, this could get better, this situation could get better, it does not. It does not get better. And our main character, his name is escaping me right now. I absolutely love him as an anti-hero. He is such a perfect example of what an anti-hero is and should be. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I just love this series by Ed McDonald so much, so much. And I can't recommend it enough. Like I said, if you ask me for grimdark recommendations, this is going to be at the top of the list. I've been singing its praises for 10 years, and I will keep singing its praises. And next, I think I actually just mentioned both of these, the last one and this one, on Discord today. The Song of Chimera by T.A. Bruno. Okay, I know T.A. has been waiting for me to announce when this was going to hit the list, but I love the Song of Chimera. I love the generational story. This is a scenario where dual timeline worked for me really well. T.A. Bruno gives us this really unassuming story at first, and then just builds and layers the story until it is just epic in scope by the end. And the third book, I got mad at him. I was like, no, why are you making me feel this way? And when I say that, I had said that I would do a review, and then I didn't post my review on Goodreads, and he was like, "Poke, hey, you remember you said?" And I was like, I don't even know what to say right now. And he was like, "Well, can you just imagine what it was like writing it?" I was like, no. But anyway, story time over. I love this series so much. I've always said that if you are a Mass Effect fan, you will love this series because what T.A. Bruno does with the world, what he does with the mechanics of the world without getting into too many details. There are creatures that you get to visualize in this place, and the aliens are so cool. Now, I have to give it to T.A. Bruno. His descriptions are great, but when I think of bird people, I think of Turians. Like, I can't get it out of my head. So even though I have seen the images of what these aliens look like, I will forever picture Turians, and I apologize to T.A. Bruno for that. But The Song of Chimera is one of my absolute favorite sci-fi reads. I just, so good, so good. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. Okay, one I can grab really quickly. I say really quickly, it's a chunky beast. I have, as yet, to rank a graphic novel in anything because I have no idea where to put them. So a lot of the books that made it on this list were sheer enjoyment, how much I enjoy them. And I can't think of many things that I enjoy quite as much as Saga. This is sci-fi. We follow two parents and their child, and the child is the narrator of this story. It's everything. I keep trying to describe this to people, and I'm like, it's a little bit of everything. There's romance, there's some erotica, it's horror, it's fantasy, it's sci-fi, it's everything. It's everything. But I love it so much, and I love the story that we are getting from this child's perspective. I'm not really sure how old they are as far as like when they start narrating the story, but it goes from their birth, well, conception, to their birth to being a baby. And I think it goes past that, but I have not gotten there yet. Like, I think we are on toddler-esque, toddler-ish age, but love this so, so much. Highly recommend it. Yes, it can be crass. Yes, it can be gross. Yes, things are depicted in the images, so just be aware of that. But love, love Saga. And next, I have two that are very similar in flavor. I'm trying to decide if I talk about them in tandem or not. But next, we'll just go with Liv Ship Traders by Robin Hobb. I love this story. I love it so much. Robin Hobb's writing is great. I love her character work, so good. But what kept me going in Liv Ship that couldn't keep me going in Assassin's Apprentice is the lore. The amount of lore and history that you get with the Liv Ship Traders is amazing. And like, there is an underlying plot throughout the entire series, but there's not a lot of plot. You know that you are moving towards certain goals. You know that you are moving towards certain things in the story, but the plot is thin. But it's also such a fantastic series that I can't not rank it really high on my favorites list. So, Robin Hobb, Liv Ship Traders. What is the series that is very similar? That would be Tide Child by R.J. Barker. I totally had to look down because I wanted to say the bone ships because I was talking about Liv Ships, so my brain went bone ships. But Tide Child by R.J. Barker, so good. Lucky Mies is one of my favorite characters. This is a group of ragtag scoundrels who are trying to make a life for themselves, but end up in a political coup. So that's basically all you need to know. However, when you get into this book, one thing I would like to point out is language. There are a lot of words that are used in this world that do not have any meaning in our world. So when you go into it, sometimes that language can throw you. It's very easy to pick it up in context, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how other people have felt about this, but I have heard some people say it kind of pulled them out of the story a little bit, encountering that stuff at first. But once you read a little bit, you catch on to what the words mean and all that stuff. So I don't think that should hinder anybody from trying to read it because, oh my gosh, this is another where trauma plays a big role in my love of the story and my attachment to the characters. And so I always say I love my trauma babies. And Tide Child is no different. Lucky Mies is no different. I love the whole crew. I love the little vulture things. I forget what they're called, but they're so freaking cool. But I have said this in this video already. R.J. Barker has become a favorite writer of mine. I will auto buy everything he writes because I just need more. Gods of the Weirdwood is staring at me on my TBR cart. I need to get to it. I apologize that R.J. Barker is coming up twice on this list. Don't be mad when I do that again in the next video because I have a favorite author that's going to hit the list twice. Well, maybe even two authors that are going to hit the list twice. All right, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.